Captain Aaron Hale adjusted the strap of his backpack as he stepped carefully over the tangled roots of Zithara 9 alien jungle. The air was thick and humid, filled with the scent of strange flowers and the wet earth. Every plant seemed alive in its own way, moving slightly even when the wind was still. Aaron had seen his share of wild worlds, but Zithara 9 had a strange, unsettling energy. The mission had started with excitement and optimism. Humanity was pushing further into the galaxy, charting new worlds and seeking resources. Aaron's team had been sent to survey this planet, collect samples, and study its wildlife. But now, the lush forest that had seemed fascinating at first felt like a trap. A sudden tremor shook the ground beneath Aaron's boots. He froze. The sound of cracking trees and falling debris echoed through the dense foliage. His heart pounded. Zithara 9 was known for seismic storms, but nothing in the reports had prepared him for the violence of this one. "Aaron, everyone okay?" he called, hoping to hear the voices of his team. Silence answered him. Panic rose, but Aaron swallowed it down. He had been trained for emergencies, and he knew that staying calm was the first step. He scanned the area, trying to locate his teammates. Broken equipment and overturned supplies lay scattered among the trees, but there was no sign of anyone. Aaron's communicator crackled. "Captain Hale, do you read me?" It was Dr. Leora Vance, the team's biologist. Her voice sounded frightened but controlled. "I'm here, but I'm alone. Where are the others?" Aaron replied, his voice steady despite the rapid beating of his heart. "They were all separated. The storm, it came too fast," Leora said. Then the line went dead. Aaron exhaled slowly. The reality was clear. He was alone. On an alien planet. And something about the jungle made him uneasy. He moved carefully, keeping his eyes and ears alert. The alien trees were massive, their trunks thick and twisted, roots rising above the ground like tentacles. Strange vines hung from above, some thick as his arm, some delicate and shimmering like silk. Every shadow seemed to hide something watching him, and maybe it did. The first sign of the predator came as a rustle behind a clump of bushes. Aaron froze, his hand instinctively reaching for the compact plasma pistol at his hip. The bushes shivered again, but when he stepped forward, nothing was there. Only the forest remained. Aaron shook his head. He had to focus. Panic was useless. He remembered the basic survival rules: find shelter, water, and food. And above all, stay aware of the environment. Hours passed. The storm receded, leaving the jungle quiet but eerie. Sunlight barely pierced the thick canopy, casting green shadows that moved with the wind. Aaron collected samples and set up a small portable shelter near a stream. He gathered some edible plants and insects, noting their properties. He kept an eye on the surrounding area. Every sound, every movement could be important. By nightfall, he realized he was not alone. The predator made itself known in subtle ways. A low rustling in the distance, the sudden disappearance of a bird, a tree branch snapping, but always just out of sight. It was clever, patient, and intelligent. Aaron had survived dangerous animals before, but he had never felt hunted like this. He remembered the mission briefing. Zithara 9 wildlife was adaptive, with predators that could anticipate human movements. But Aaron suspected this one was different. It seemed curious. Sleep came fitfully, with Aaron taking turns keeping watch. When he closed his eyes, he dreamt of the glowing eyes he had glimpsed moving in the shadows. They were larger than any predator he had seen, and there was a strange intelligence in them. The next morning, he awoke to find his shelter disturbed. The predator had been there during the night. Nothing was missing, but the subtle rearrangement of his equipment was unsettling. He realized the predator was not only stalking him, it was studying him. Aaron decided he needed to move. Staying in one place would make him predictable. He packed his gear and set out deeper into the jungle, hoping to find higher ground or a location that would allow him to see the predator before it saw him. As he walked, he noticed patterns in the forest. Broken branches, bent leaves, footprints not quite human. He started marking them, tracking the predator's movements. Each step made his heart race, but he kept his mind sharp. This was a game of wits, and he could not afford mistakes. By midday, he discovered a clearing. Strange, bioluminescent plants surrounded a small pond. The water was clear, and Aaron knelt to drink. He was careful, scanning the perimeter. The jungle seemed to hold its breath. Then he heard it, a low, guttural growl that resonated through the ground. He froze, recognizing the sound instantly. The predator was close. Aaron grabbed his pistol, moving slowly to the nearest tree. He had to remain calm to think strategically. Panic would be fatal. He scanned the area, looking for any hint of movement. A shadow shifted near the edge of the clearing. The predator was enormous, with sleek, dark scales and glowing eyes that reflected the dappled light. Its gaze was fixed on him. Aaron's mind raced. He could try to run, but the jungle favored the predator. He could try to fight, but the creature was fast and powerful. He realized the only advantage he had was his mind. Humans had survived for millennia not because of strength, but because of intelligence, strategy, and courage. He remembered the stories of explorers on other worlds, how humans had outsmarted dangers far greater than themselves. He took a deep breath, steadying his pulse, and began to plan. Using a small flare, he diverted the predator's attention, leading it toward a series of traps he set using fallen logs and vines. The predator hesitated, then followed, curious and cautious. Aaron kept moving, always staying one step ahead. The sun began to set, casting long shadows across the jungle floor. Aaron finally found a small cave for shelter. It was high enough to give him a vantage point, and the narrow entrance made it harder for the predator to enter. Inside, he set up a small perimeter with sensors and noisemakers. He ate a sparse meal, documenting his observations. Every detail about the predator, every movement and sound, could become a clue for survival. As night fell, he could hear the predator outside, circling, studying, waiting. Aaron lay awake, listening. He realized something important. The predator was not mindless. It was intelligent, patient, and maybe even capable of learning. He had to treat it as more than just a beast. It was a worthy opponent. For the first time, he felt a spark of respect. He was alone, yes, but not powerless. Humanity's greatest strength was its mind, its creativity, its adaptability, and he would use all of that to survive. The night stretched on, filled with the sounds of the alien jungle and the ever-present presence of the predator. Aaron's resolve hardened. This was a fight of wits, courage, and endurance, and he would not fail. Somewhere in the darkness, the predator watched. It had recognized the human as clever, different from the other creatures it had hunted. A game had begun, a test of intelligence, strategy, and survival, and neither would yield easily. As dawn approached, Aaron looked out from his cave. The jungle was alive, dangerous, and mysterious, but he was ready. Whatever came next, he knew one thing for certain: he would survive. Humanity had faced impossible odds before. And here, on Zithra 9, alone and hunted, Aaron Hale would prove that human ingenuity was a force even the deadliest predator could not ignore. The jungle of Zithra 9 had grown darker and denser as Aaron Hale moved deeper into it. He had spent the night in the cave, listening to the predator circling outside. Every sound, every crack of a branch, reminded him that he was being watched. Morning came with muted light filtering through the thick canopy. Aaron stepped cautiously out of the cave, checking his surroundings. The jungle seemed calm, almost peaceful, but he knew better. Calm could be the deadliest trap. He began walking, keeping low and quiet. Each step was deliberate. He scanned the forest floor for footprints, disturbed leaves, or any sign of the predator. The creature had been clever last night, testing him, but it had also shown restraint. Aaron recognized that restraint for what it was: intelligence. Aaron paused by a stream to refill his water canister. As he knelt, he noticed something unusual. Some of the plants near the stream were bent in a pattern, not random, but organized like a subtle signal. Aaron frowned. Could the predator be leaving messages, warnings? Or was it testing him again? He shook his head, trying to push down the growing unease. Survival required focus, not fear. He checked his pistol, then his small survival scanner, and began moving again. Hours passed. The jungle seemed to shift around him. Trees, roots, and vines formed confusing paths. Aaron realized that the predator was leading him, subtly herding him towards certain areas. It was a game, a test of human ingenuity. Suddenly, a sharp snap echoed from behind a cluster of bushes. Aaron froze. He barely had time to turn when a shadow darted past him. It moved faster than anything he had ever seen. The predator had emerged. It was enormous, sleek, and powerful, with scales that shimmered in the dim light. Its eyes glowed faintly, intelligent and calculating. Aaron's pulse quickened. He lifted his pistol, but he knew a direct attack would fail. Instead, he remembered the flare trick from the previous night. He grabbed a small light stick and tossed it toward a thick cluster of trees. The bright flash startled the predator, making it pause. Aaron used the moment to slip behind a fallen log, gaining temporary cover. The predator studied him, tilting its head as if curious. It didn't attack immediately. Instead, it circled, testing him, gauging his reactions. Aaron realized something important. The creature was learning from him, just as he was learning from it. He spent the next hours moving carefully, observing, recording, and thinking. He began noticing patterns. The predator seemed to respond to noise, movement, and changes in the environment. It avoided areas where light reflected from his tools, and it reacted to sudden sounds with caution. Aaron decided to use this to his advantage. He began setting small traps, not to harm the predator but to test its reactions. Simple tripwires with noise makers, reflective panels, and decoy signals. The predator approached each trap carefully, sometimes investigating, sometimes retreating. Aaron noted every response, learning how it thought. As night fell, Aaron found another small clearing with a natural rock formation that offered some shelter. He set up his sensors and laid out a simple perimeter. Sitting on a rock, he ate a small meal of foraged plants and insects. His mind worked constantly, analyzing every encounter. The predator circled the clearing, staying just out of reach. Aaron felt its presence like a shadow over his mind. But instead of fear, he felt determination. Humanity had survived because it could think, adapt, and endure. This predator was strong, but it did not outmatch the human mind. Hours later, the predator struck, but not as Aaron expected. Instead of charging, it manipulated the environment. A tree branch snapped above him, a rock shifted in his path, and a low, guttural sound echoed through the clearing. The predator was testing him, forcing him to make choices, to adapt. Aaron reacted quickly, leaping aside and using his knowledge of the terrain to maintain balance. He realized that brute strength would not work. The key was strategy and observation. He decided to push the predator toward a narrow path between two cliffs. Using small noises and light signals, he guided it without it noticing the plan. It followed cautiously, clearly aware of him but intrigued. Aaron's heart pounded, but he stayed calm. Finally, he reached the path. The cliffs on either side were steep, and the space was tight. The predator paused, realizing it could not move freely. Aaron stepped into the clearing at the edge of the path, keeping his eyes on the creature. For a long moment, neither moved. The predator seemed to study him, its glowing eyes scanning every movement. Aaron understood something profound. The predator recognized him as more than prey. It saw him as a worthy opponent. He spoke softly, almost to himself. "We both want to survive. Maybe we can understand each other." The predator tilted its head, emitting a low, curious sound. Aaron's mind raced. Could it understand intention? Could a creature like this recognize strategy, intelligence, even empathy? He decided to take a calculated risk. Using small, deliberate gestures, he moved closer, showing he was not a threat but a rival. The predator mirrored his movements, keeping distance but maintaining focus. It was a silent game of intelligence and willpower. Night deepened, and Aaron returned to a small alcove in the rocks. He documented everything: movements, sounds, patterns. Every observation could be a clue for survival. He realized that the predator's intelligence was extraordinary. It was not only strong and fast, but capable of learning, predicting, and adapting. The next day, Aaron experimented further. He left small offerings, edible plants, water, and reflective signals to see the predator's response. It approached cautiously, sniffing, circling, then retreating. Every action was deliberate. Aaron understood that the creature was not mindless. It was curious, patient, and highly intelligent. He began to see a pattern. The predator did not attack randomly. It only acted when it had an advantage. It waited for mistakes, for hesitation. And Aaron realized the truth. To survive, he had to be constantly aware, anticipate moves, and never let fear control him. Days passed. Aaron and the predator continued this silent dance. He began moving with more confidence, testing the creature, understanding its limits, and using the environment strategically. He discovered that the predator responded to changes in light, vibrations in the ground, and subtle movements. One afternoon, Aaron found an abandoned human supply cache, left by a previous mission that had failed. Inside were tools, sensors, and survival equipment. He quickly incorporated them into his strategy, setting up traps and alarms that gave him a further advantage. That night, the predator approached the clearing with caution. Aaron used the sensors to anticipate its movement, leading it along a path where he had prepared diversions. The predator reacted quickly, adapting, but Aaron stayed one step ahead. He realized that this encounter was different. The predator no longer saw him only as prey. It was now engaging in a test of intelligence, measuring human ingenuity against its own. And Aaron understood that this test was mutual. Both sought survival, but both also measured the other's limits. As he settled into a new high-ground perch, he reflected. Humanity's greatest strength was not physical power. It was mind, creativity, and courage. The predator was strong, but it could be outsmarted. Aaron felt a surge of determination. He was alone, yes, but not powerless. The predator lingered in the shadows, watching. Aaron watched back. He could feel a strange respect forming between them, a silent acknowledgement of skill and intelligence. The forest was dangerous, but it was also a proving ground. And in this deadly game, human adaptability and courage had not only survived, they had begun to thrive. The night grew colder, and the sounds of Zithra 9 alien jungle intensified. Aaron tightened his grip on his equipment, ready for whatever the predator would do next. He knew it would return, that the game was far from over, but he was prepared. Every observation, every clever maneuver, every risk calculated. He had turned fear into strategy, threat into opportunity. Somewhere in the jungle, the predator paused, sensing the human's confidence. It had recognized something rare: intelligence, courage, and unpredictability. Aaron had become more than prey. He had become a challenge. And as he lay awake, listening to the jungle, Aaron knew that tomorrow would be even harder, even more dangerous. The predator would test him further, but he was ready. Humans had survived against impossible odds before. And here, on Zithra 9, Aaron Hale would continue to prove that ingenuity, courage, and determination could survive, even against the deadliest predator. The silent game had begun in earnest. And neither would yield easily. The jungle of Zithra 9 seemed quieter than usual that morning. Aaron Hale moved cautiously, every sense alert. After days of careful observation, survival, and study, he understood the predator better than ever. It was intelligent, fast, and cunning, but it had limits, limits that Aaron intended to exploit. He had been planning for this moment. The predator's behavior had patterns and Aaron had learned them all. It reacted to sudden movements, bright lights and vibrations in the ground. It followed noise but avoided areas where the terrain was unpredictable. Using this knowledge, he began setting a trap, not to kill the creature, but to force a final confrontation on his terms. Aaron moved silently through the dense foliage, carrying a makeshift toolkit of sensors, wires, and reflective panels scavenged from the abandoned supply cache. Each piece of equipment was carefully positioned to manipulate the predator's movements. He remembered something crucial. Survival was not about strength alone. It was about thinking ahead and anticipating every action. He reached the chosen location, a narrow canyon that opened into a small plateau. The cliffs on either side would limit the predator's mobility, and the plateau would give him space to maneuver. Aaron set his devices quickly, weaving them into the natural environment. Tripwires hidden under leaves, reflective panels angled toward the sun, and small noisemakers placed strategically. Every element was designed to give him a tactical advantage. As the sun began to sink, casting long shadows across the jungle floor, Aaron crouched behind a large boulder observing. He knew the predator was nearby. He could hear the soft rustling of leaves and the subtle shift of branches. The creature had sensed the setup. He held his breath, waiting. Finally, it appeared. The predator emerged from the jungle, moving silently but confidently. Its eyes glowed faintly, intelligent and calculating. It paused, scanning the area, sensing the devices but not fully understanding their purpose. Aaron stayed completely still, letting the predator approach the trap. A sudden snap. One of the tripwires triggered a small noisemaker, startling the creature. It leapt, twisting midair, and landed near the edge of the canyon. Aaron used the moment to adjust his position. The predator's glowing eyes followed him, alert but not panicked. He had noticed something important in previous encounters. The predator would hesitate when its path was uncertain. That hesitation was key. Aaron had created multiple zones where the ground was unstable, forcing the predator to tread carefully. Every step it took was guided by the human mind. The predator moved forward, testing the terrain. Aaron triggered another device, a reflective panel angled to shine light briefly into the creature's eyes. It hissed softly, retreating a few steps, then approached again. Aaron's pulse raced, but he remained calm. Patience was essential. Hours passed as the predator circled and tested the trap. Aaron documented every movement, every reaction. This was not just survival, it was a contest of intelligence, a battle of wits. The predator was strong and fast, but it lacked the ability to plan several steps ahead. Humans excelled in foresight, in anticipation. As night fell completely, Aaron knew it was time. The predator had been lured into the canyon, where its mobility was limited. He activated the final device, a small signal flare that produced both light and sound, drawing the predator toward a narrow path between two cliffs. The creature followed, cautious but curious. Aaron stepped into the path, keeping low and moving slowly. The predator froze at the edge, recognizing the shift in control. Aaron knew that direct confrontation could be deadly, so he relied on strategy over force. He used the flare to guide the predator closer, then triggered a small diversion, a falling rock that caused the creature to jump, momentarily disoriented. In that instant, Aaron moved forward, showing confidence, strength, and intelligence. The predator mirrored him, circling, testing, analyzing. It was no longer a mindless hunter. It was a competitor in a game of survival. Aaron realized something profound. Respect had formed between them. The predator recognized ingenuity, courage, and unpredictability, qualities it had not seen in ordinary prey. Using the terrain to his advantage, Aaron led the predator across the plateau. He placed reflective panels that bounced moonlight in a controlled pattern, confusing the creature's senses just enough to guide it where he wanted. Each movement was calculated, deliberate and precise. Finally, they reached a small natural enclosure, a flat area with limited exits. Aaron crouched, waiting. The predator approached carefully, sensing the constraints. He stepped into view, holding his hands visible, signaling that he was not a threat but a rival. The predator paused, hissing softly, studying him. Aaron spoke quietly, more to himself than to the creature. "We both want to survive. We both have strength, but only one can control this moment." His words were calm, firm, and filled with confidence. The predator tilted its head, responding with a low, curious growl. He understood now that brute force would accomplish nothing. The predator was strong, fast, and intelligent. Survival depended on cleverness, anticipation, and courage. Using a combination of gestures, lights, and strategic movement, Aaron guided the creature through the final part of his plan. A sudden noisemaker triggered behind the predator. It spun, alert, giving Aaron the opening to step closer without risk. The creature hissed, then paused, considering its options. It was a silent acknowledgement. Aaron had forced it to recognize him as more than prey. He took a careful step forward, holding his ground. The predator mirrored him. The two faced each other, both alert, intelligent, and aware. This was no longer a hunt. It was a test, a contest of wits and courage. Hours seemed to pass in tense stillness. Then slowly the predator backed away, retreating to the edge of the enclosure. Aaron understood the gesture, respect. The creature was intelligent enough to recognize that its challenge had been met. It had acknowledged the human skill, courage, and ingenuity. Aaron exhaled slowly, lowering his hands. He had survived. Not because of strength, not because of weapons, but because of the qualities that had always made humans resilient: intelligence, adaptability, and determination. The jungle grew quiet again. Aaron set up a small camp in the enclosure, using it as a vantage point to rest and recover. He knew the predator would remain nearby, watching, but there was no immediate danger. He reflected on what had happened. Humanity was fragile in the face of raw power, but it had a unique advantage: the ability to think, to plan, and to innovate. Days later, a search team from his ship arrived. They had been tracing signals from his survival beacon. Aaron emerged from the enclosure, exhausted but triumphant. He recounted the events carefully, describing the predator, its intelligence, and the strategies he had used to survive. The team listened in awe. The predator had not been a mindless beast. It had been a challenge, a creature that tested human intelligence and ingenuity. Aaron had survived because he understood it, respected it, and used his mind to outthink it. Before leaving Zithra 9, Aaron looked back at the jungle. The predator was there, hidden in the shadows, observing. It had recognized him as a worthy opponent, and in its own way, it had respected him. Aaron knew that the jungle and its creatures were dangerous, but humanity had a power of its own, the power of intellect, courage, and adaptability. Back on the ship, Aaron prepared his report. He emphasized the lessons learned. Humans could survive against extraordinary odds not through force, but through ingenuity, careful observation, and courage. The predator had been lethal, yes, but it had also been an opportunity, a test of humanity's greatest strengths. As the ship lifted off Zithra 9, Aaron gazed out at the alien jungle below. It was alive, wild, and beautiful. He had faced the deadliest predator he had ever encountered, and he had survived. Not just survived, but learned, adapted, and proven something vital. Humans were clever, resilient, and unstoppable when their mind and courage were fully engaged. The jungle receded below him, but the lessons remained. The predator, the forest, the danger, they were all reminders of what it meant to be human. Survival was never easy, but with intelligence, courage, and adaptability, humanity could face any challenge, anywhere in the universe. Aaron smiled faintly. Humanity had won, not by brute strength, but by being exactly what it had always been: clever, determined, and unyielding. And somewhere deep in the jungle, the predator waited, patient and intelligent, knowing that one day it might meet another human worthy of the test. But for now, Aaron Hale had proven that human ingenuity could survive, and even triumph, against the deadliest of opponents. Left alone with a lethal predator, a human's fate took a dark turn.